This is the Momentum Podcast.
I am really excited for today's podcast interview with Dre Baldwin from Work on Your Game. Now, Dre runs a very unique company helping athletes become professional athletes, those who have the talent but maybe aren't getting recognized. But that's not why we brought him on. We brought Dre on because he's one of the most committed members we have. He's on all of our calls. He's implemented our models and our frameworks like crazy, and he's experiencing radical success and really getting into momentum. I can't wait for him to share it with you. You're going to love this interview. In just a moment, I'm introducing you to Dre Baldwin.
I'm Alex Sharfin, and this is the Momentum Podcast, made for empire builders, game changers, trailblazers, shot takers, record breakers, world makers, and creators of all kinds. Those among us who can't turn it off and don't know why anyone would want to. We challenge complacency, destroy apathy, and we are obsessed with creating momentum so we can roll over bureaucracy and make our greatest contribution. Sure, we pay attention to their rules, but only so that we can bend them, break them, then rewrite them around our own will. We don't accept our destiny, we define it. We don't understand defeat because you only lose if you stop, and we don't know how. While the rest of the world strives for average and clings desperately to the status quo, we are the minority, the few, who are willing to hallucinate there could be a better future. And instead of just daydreaming of what could be, we endure the vulnerability and exposure it takes to make it real. We are the evolutionary hunters, clearly the most important people in the world, because entrepreneurs are the only source of consistent, positive human evolution, and we always will be.
Dre, I'm incredibly excited to have you on the podcast today. You have created some raving fans on my team. They talk about you a lot. You come up over and over again. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you for having me, Alex. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's my privilege. So real quick, I just want to share with everybody, Dre, what you do for your business. It's a very unique, very intriguing business. So what is it that you do?
What we do with the Overseas Basketball Blueprint is what it's called, is we provide a framework for basketball players who feel like they have the talent to play professional basketball, but for whatever reason, they feel like they've been underrated and overlooked. We provide the information and the harsh truths that they need to understand about getting a career and sustaining a career in professional basketball so they can actually get paid for their talent, which is something that 99% of athletes never get an opportunity to do.
What's interesting, Dre, is that, to the uninitiated who don't understand sports, I've had a ton of friends who had played pro sports. So I have some understanding of the European leagues, the minor leagues, where you have to kind of prove yourself. To the general public, they just think it's talent. Like if you have the talent, you're going to end up playing. That's not always the truth, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. Because as what makes the sports world different from the business world, or maybe being a lawyer or a doctor, is that in business, anyone who has a product or service and a customer can be an entrepreneur. But in sports, there's a finite number of jobs. Everybody cannot play. So in the basketball world, in the whole world, there are fewer than 5,000 jobs total. So if there are 10,000 good players, you're going to have 5,000 unhappy players because everybody's not going to have a job.
Yeah. And so it's not necessarily just about talent. It's about talent. But it's interesting. It's a lot like being an entrepreneur, isn't it? Like when you're an entrepreneur, you're marketing yourself, you're selling yourself, you're showing up in a certain way. Isn't that a lot of what you have to do in pro sports?
Absolutely. And I should say 5,000 jobs for American-born players. So just to correct myself. But as far as talent, you do need talent to play professional sports. If you don't have talent, you're not even getting in the room. So talent makes you eligible. Just like as an entrepreneur, having a great idea or product makes you eligible. But then if you don't have the other elements around it, then you won't be able to produce a return on investment off of your talent.
So when your business is called Work on Your Game, and it doesn't refer to just working on your game, it's working on the game and then the game behind the game. It's got like a little double entendre, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's why it's a perfect slogan. So
it's so good. Now that we're talking about it, it just hit me. I'm like, oh, that's really better than I thought it was. It's like, I thought it was good. It's really good.
Right. So it doesn't limit itself to sports. What I tell people all the time is that the game is bigger than just your ability to play, because if basketball was all based on people's talent, I would never have become a professional athlete. There were players who were more talented than me that I played with in my neighborhood, in high school, and in college. And none of them had the career that I had. I had some of the intangibles, the mindset tools, the mental game tools, and I understood how to market and promote myself, which was a requirement if I was going to get on from where I came from. So all of those were part of the game. And me getting to where I got to. And even still to this day in the business world, I'm still learning the game. I still consider myself very, very new in the business world. So I have to learn the game. And that's why I find coaches like yourself who have that information and have that knowledge. And I try to apply myself as best I can. Same way I did in sports.
So, Dre, whenever we have a professional athlete member, whenever a pro athlete or somebody who's been heavily involved in athletics selects us, I always find it super flattering and very humbling because athletes know how important their coach is. Like every athlete has had a good coach and every athlete has had a coach that they did not connect with. And what they know is they played way better with the good coach. Am I right?
Absolutely.
So give me an idea. Like I'd like to know what was going on in your business that made you seek us out.
Great question. Well, first of all, coming from the sports world, I remember listening to something like Tony Robbins, for example. Everyone can relate. Tony would always say things like, all you had to do is look at where you're succeeding and then find the parallels between where you succeeded. What did you do when you were succeeding? And then apply that to the areas where you're not succeeding. And one of the things about sports is that every athlete has a coach. People use that cliche all the time. So coming into 2020, one of my goals was I needed to really get a handle on what the hell I was doing as an entrepreneur in business. So I went to the ClickFunnels conference earlier this year, and I started catching up on their podcast, ClickFunnels Radio podcast. And they had about 400 episodes I was catching up on. And I heard you on there, Alex. And I heard your name before. I heard Russell Brunson mention you a few times in passing, but I never looked you up or anything. I just remember him saying your name. And then I heard you on that podcast, and you just, it was like a breath of fresh air. And I'm not saying that to kiss up to you because I'm on the call with you right now. But the way that you were talking is you sounded completely different from everyone else who was on the ClickFunnels show. They were all talking about, here's how I sell my product. Here's how I run my ads. Here's how I create content. Here's how I get an audience. You were saying, okay, you have all those things, but how do you structure and organize your business? How do you make your business predictable? And I always was of the belief that, well, business can't be predictable because you don't know when a customer is going to come in. You don't know when somebody's going to buy anything. So when I heard you saying that, and then you made it a really easy call to action. You said, I had this thing called the billionaire code, which automatically gets anybody's attention. All right, I want to be a billionaire. Let me see that code. And then you said, all right, it's a simple form. I'm going to show you where you are and then show you how to get to the next step. I said, okay, I'll do that. I'll give you my email address in exchange for that. So I went and got that billionaire code and I looked it up and I looked at it and I said, damn it, he's right. He knows exactly where I'm at. That is exactly the question I'm asking myself. And the question was, what is wrong with me? I would say that, I literally would say that to my girlfriend. I would say, I have all this value, all these skills. I know what the hell I'm doing, or at least I know what I'm doing as far as I know what I know. Some things I don't know that I don't know, but I know that I'm not a fool. So why is this not working the way that it should be working? I'm seeing people walk across that stage who I know they're not smarter than me. I know they don't work harder than me. I know they don't have more talent than me. What's wrong with me? So when I saw that question, I said, this guy understands something. So then I filled out the form, got on a call with, I believe it was Jeremy. Actually, I know it was Jeremy. And 2 days later, actually on Friday the 13th, the day that COVID took over America, that's the day that I joined the Sharfin program.
That's so awesome that you remember that day.
Yes.
So, and man, we've been like living through that Friday 13th since then. Yeah. So Dre, give us an idea. So you came in really, it sounds like, because the promise of structure, the promise of predictability, like, right. Here's what I always, whenever I'm working with athletes, I say, look, things can be predictable. Like wins are never predictable, but if you do your training and you show up the right way and you sleep the night before and you're prepared for the game, you have a much higher percentage chance of winning. So while all of business isn't predictable, if you create your plan and you show up the right way and you knock it off one day at a time, you can have a ton that's way more predictable. How has that shifted how you look at business?
Absolutely. I think is a guy named Scott Adams, an author, who talks about systems versus goals, that some people have the goal that they want to achieve something, but if you follow a system, you may not always get the win, but over the long run, you are going to get that outcome. And Alex, I heard you mention before that you did some distance running back in your time. Yeah. Right. And it's kind of like running a marathon. And over the course of a marathon, you might not always be in the lead, but if you do all the right things, you will get to your outcome at the end. So that system was something I was definitely looking for. But as far as answering your question, how does it help my business? Well, first of all, now I'm actually tracking things in my business as opposed to just doing stuff and wondering what's working and what's not. I can see where I'm growing, where I'm getting better or getting worse from month to month. I have an assistant in place who is really great at tracking that kind of stuff, because that's not really, I'm not naturally inclined to those type of things, but she is, so it's perfect. So I'm starting to get a better picture of where my business is and exactly where I'm at and exactly what I'm doing and what needs to be fixed moving forward.
You know, it's interesting. So I want to bring up a conversation we had before we hit record, because I think it fits right here. You know, we have this theory in our business that there's 3 things required for momentum: a clear outcome, like you have to know where you're going; clear transparency, which means there's a clear scoreboard, and then you have to understand what you're doing and the people around you are doing. Right before I hit record, we had a quick conversation about athletics and scoreboards. Like when you are playing a sport, you can't avoid the scoreboard. How has, well, actually, I just want you to tell me. So how did that shift in your business?
Great question. I actually was just thinking about this past Saturday. I just finished the run. Since I stopped playing basketball, I like to run outside. So I just finished the run. And anyone who's ever run, you know, when you get to the end of that run, you're in the zone. So I'm in that zone at the end of the run. And I always ask myself when I finish those runs, like, how can I take this energy that I'm feeling right now for this little 5-minute window and bottle this up and use it in my business? Because I know if I did, I could rule the world. But I haven't really been able to nail it down. But the thing that I thought of, because I've been so immersed in the Sharfin content, was that OTA, a clear outcome. When you're running, you know exactly how far you're going to go. Transparency, you know exactly what the route is that you're running. Accountability, you know it's just you. And the other thing that I added in was a clear focus. See, when you're running, there's no notifications, there's no Twitter, there's no Instagram, there's no email to check. And that was really, once I realized that, I said, all right, I really need to start cutting the fat in my life when I'm not running, so I don't get distracted from doing what I need to do. And could you tell me the question again? I tend to do this.
Dude, I love this answer. So how has it helped you? Before when we were talking, you had said, in athletics, I had a scoreboard. In business, I didn't. And like, you recognized the need for that.
Right. So when I hired an EA and I had her understanding the Sharfin material, we put together a board that basically has all the KPIs. And it's funny, my EA even asked me about this before I even told her about the Sharfin material. She was like, can we have some KPIs so we know what we're doing and we know that we're making progress and you can see that I'm actually helping? And I said, I smiled when she said that. So I'm so glad you asked that question, because that's exactly what we're going to do. So now we have that board that basically tells us, all right, here's our stats for the website. Here are the things we're going to measure. Here are many people coming into membership, how many free plus shipping books we've sold. Here's our revenue so far. Here's how close we are to target, how close we're not. We put together our OTAs just last week. I think I mentioned on the expert call, we finally did our first quarterly at the beginning of July. So now I can see a snapshot of exactly where we're at. I can see the scoreboard of my business.
Yeah, that's huge, isn't it? What is so there's so many different questions I want to ask, like the fact that you didn't put the scoreboard together, the EA did, because so many people, like, here's what a lot of entrepreneurs feel is like, I'm not a numbers person. I have a hard time with that. When you have it put together for you though, doesn't it provide clarity?
Absolutely. Because one thing you realize when you start handing tasks off to other people is that they may not be as clear as you thought they were. Yeah. When they're in your head. It sounds perfect when you're just saying it to yourself. And when someone else looks at it and then they start asking questions or they're confused, you realize that maybe it wasn't as clear as you thought it was. But yes, it is absolutely a game changer to have another set of eyes that is completely objective, looking at your material and basically showing you yourself.
Yeah. And then you have that feedback. One of the things that is so important to me in business is I want feedback. I want to know what's going on. I want to understand what's happening. Like, what are my efforts creating? And so it's just like sports. Only in sports, you get to look up at a scoreboard. In business, we have to create it and go check in on it. But that still gives you that same motivation. That's awesome. So, what does your business feel like now, Dre? Now that you have some structure, now that you've hired the EA, you've brought in, some clear outcomes, clear transparency, the accountability around it. How has this changed running your business for you?
What's changed for me is I know, first of all, that I had to hold myself accountable, because every day I'm getting on a call with my executive assistant and we're going over what was supposed to be done, what needs to be done next, and knowing who's responsible for what. Secondly, I know what to do with my time, because I don't know if any entrepreneurs who are listening to the show or anything like me, but sometimes I would get to work in the morning and there's 20 different things I could do. And I spent more time just trying to figure out which one to do than actually working. And so a lot of time was getting burned up there. And then I would be working on things, but is this actually getting me to where I want to go? Well, I couldn't answer the question because I didn't know what the scoreboard was. So all it is, these ideas and all the talent and skills that you have, you may be using it towards an end that is not even getting you where you want to go. But if you don't know where you want to go, you could end up anywhere. And I guess you made it. So that's one of the main things that's helped for me is just knowing where I'm going. And every day I have a clear plan of exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Now, that's huge. That's for all of us. I mean, I think even me, sometimes like I'll come in and I'll spend that 10 or 15 minutes kind of spinning. And then I'll go, wait a second, I have a plan. I know I've got a waterfall. I need to go look at my weekly commitments. Like, what am I doing? You know, and it's so much easier when your productivity is set up for you and you trust it. Mm-hmm. So Dre, a lot of entrepreneurs feel like process, structure, and routine is going to hold them back and take away freedom. And it feels like, you know, I have this saying that I share is process will set you free. But what I know is the idea of like having a daily meeting and having to follow process feels like you're giving something up. Can you speak to that? Like, has it first, I want to know for you, has it felt like you're giving something up, or what has it felt like to add in the process, the structure, the routine that so many people kind of fight against?
Well, the process feels great to me. That was never a problem for me. Like coming from the sports world, you do the same thing over and over and over again every single day. In practice and basketball, sometimes in college, especially, I would butt heads with the coaches because I would get bored doing the same stuff every day. And there was no crowd, so there was no one to perform for. I would get bored of seeing the same faces every day. But when I became a professional, I actually started to buy into that because I realized in the basketball world, especially playing overseas, for those who don't know, when you're an American player, everybody's watching you. So if you're not showing up every day doing your job, you can get fired just from having a bad practice, let alone a bad game. So every single day, every practice is even a game. So just getting used to that discipline of showing and that mental toughness of doing the same thing all the time is great. And I like the process of being able to hand off tasks to other people, and they are excited about doing them because they have a scoreboard. So it's a lot different when you're an entrepreneur. Your scoreboard might just be some vague thing in your head, but when you have people working for you, they want to know that you know that they're contributing, that they're doing something to actually help. So being able to hand off tasks to other people, I'm all for that. I want more people to hand off tasks to. I don't want fewer, I want more. I have no problem of doing everything myself. I don't have that issue. I want to give it all away.
So, Dre, if I want to wrap this up with like one last question. What do you feel like is the biggest difference from before you were working with our process, the structure, the routine, the scoreboards, and now? Like, what do you think has been the biggest game changer for you personally?
The biggest game changer is that I now know what I'm doing and where I'm going. Before, one day I might wake up and say, okay, let me build a new funnel. Next day, let me write another book. Let me make a new course. Let me focus on getting speaking gigs. Let me see if I can get some consulting contracts. Now I can put all of those things in their proper place and get rid of things that need to be gotten rid of. And now I have a scoreboard. I know exactly where I'm going this year, this quarter, this month, this week, and I know what I'm doing each day. So it has reduced the pressure and noise in my life and in my head that I know exactly what I'm doing every single time I turn on a computer or every time I'm talking to one of my staff members. I know exactly where I'm going. So it's actually like addition by subtraction. As I told you at the beginning, when I first was looking for a coach, I was finding a lot of people saying, well, let's make you another funnel. Let's sell you a product. Here's how to sell a course for 10 grand. I said, I didn't need more. The last thing I needed was more stuff. So yours was talking about how you simplify. And that simplification is what I was looking for. So like I said, it was a breath of fresh air for me.
That's awesome, Dre. Thank you for sharing that, especially that last answer. I think, especially in the entrepreneurial world today, we have this impression that success is really complicated. And you know, what's interesting is you actually kind of, you let everybody know what creates success earlier in this podcast. It's doing the same thing day after day, over and over again, doing it better, practicing, getting better results, and knowing where you're going. And that's what really creates massive entrepreneurial success. So, Dre, I loved this podcast. We already talked about it in the preamble. I just want to let everybody listening know that we are going to bring you back in a few months and check in on you and where your business is. Because right now, you've been in the program a few months. You have one team member. Business is going well. So no pressure, but we're going to check in with you 3 months and see where things are. And you know what? I feel confident like saying that because Deanna and our coaches have told me that you're on like almost every call. You show up to everything. You're like the most bought in member that we have. And that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast today. I appreciate like the level of commitment and the level of energy that you've given our program.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to be here. I really appreciate you all. From what I understand, listening to your earlier shows, that you didn't always offer everybody to even be in your program. So I'm glad you made the decision to open it up to be able to help more people. I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, you got it, Dre. I think you're in the foundation program, which is our first step program with us. And it's for the entrepreneurs that are ready to get into momentum and really understand where they're going. And it's funny. We never thought we would have a program for people who are like in the closer to the startup range, but now that's become my favorite audience with us. Like I love our foundation members, and I've really enjoyed this interview, man. I can't wait to do it again. So absolutely. I know there's some people who are going to want to know who you are, want to look you up. Like, where's the best place that we can learn more about you, Dre?
Man, well, I'm on every social media platform. I got a lot of websites, so let's see. My main website is dreallday.com. That's my homepage. As far as, we'll just stick to dreallday.com.
Let's go with dreallday.com. And the business is called, go ahead.
Work on Your Game Incorporated. That's the name of the company.
Multiple meanings behind Work on Your Game. I love it. And yes. If you're interested, actually, because you mentioned the download, Dre, so for anybody who's listening, if you'd like to download the Billionaire Code, you can go to billionairecode.com. That's the framework that Dre started out with, shows you exactly where you are, what you should have already taken care of, and what you're going to be taking care of next. So go to billionairecode.com. You can also set up a call with a member of my team. We'd love to connect with you. Dre, thanks again, brother.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.